from Frankie from Flatbush headquarters on something unexpected. Today is cut down day, of course, but we're not reporting on cut down day because everybody else is doing that. You don't need to hear from Frankie about cut down day. We cut down the roster. We kept some people. We got rid of some other people. That's not what we're interested in here. I mean, we're interested in it, but there's also something else going on in the NFL that's very important. What is it, Frankie? Well, let's talk about it. Let's see if I can, bring it up. See the news. Breaking today. NFL owners approve private equity investment. We talked about this previously. Now it's come to fruition. This happened today, August 27th, 5:18 p.m. Breaking news. Breaking news. The league has officially embraced private equity. All right, let's see what this says here. The NFL on Tuesday approved the introduction of private equity into team ownership at last, bringing a lucrative source of capital into the largest and most dominant U.S. pro sports league. The highly anticipated league vote, taken in a special meeting here, will allow private equity investors up to a 10% stake of an individual team's equity, below other comparable leagues that allow up to 30%. An approved firm can hold stakes in up to 6 teams. This has been a long process, this guy says. Blah, blah, blah. The approval is by no means a free-for-all. There are only 8 approved firms that can participate, at least for now, and there's a provision that the league can force a sale of an equity stake held by private equity if they violate the terms. There's a lot of terms they got to play by. Additionally, no governance rights in teams will be included in any of the deals. They can't govern the team. Not allowed. The involved firms would also be required to hold their team stakes for a minimum of 6 years, so no flipping and slipping. No flipping and slipping. It's a long-term investment. The involved firms include Arctos Partners, they're big. Ares Management, they're big. Sixth Street Partners, they're big. A consortium of Blackstone, CVC, Carlyle, Dynasty, and Ludus. The latter firm was founded and is led by Pro Football Hall of Famer Curtis, my favorite, Mautin, one of the best Jets of all time. Now, many of these firms are blah, blah, blah. While there is much work ahead, today is a milestone reflecting blah, blah, blah. Okay, so now what this means is these people can buy a share in the teams. So a 10% stake up to. So we got to know then what the valuation of these teams are. Well, luckily Sportico tells us. Number 1 most valuable team in the whole league, Dallas Cowboys. Okay. Number 2, the LA Rams. Number 3, the New York Gigantes. Number 4, the New England Patriots. Number 5, the San Francisco 49ers. And number 6, the New York Jetsies. Now, the interesting thing, well, a couple of interesting things here. We're 6th in the league in terms of valuation, gone up 11% from last year, and we haven't sniffed the playoffs for 14 years, let alone be, in the Super Bowl. Frequent playoff appearances, they just won a Super Bowl. The Rams, the Giants are kind of in our boat, but they're a historical franchise. The Patriots with their 6 rings, they say. And, of course, the 49ers, they've been in the playoffs all the time these last few years. So, and we have not. Dolphins have been to the playoffs, Eagles, and Raiders have been struggling a bit. But anyway, so $6.8 billion with a B. So 10%. So these firms can buy about $600 million. Now, why is that important? Well, before we get into the why, let's look at something else. If you look at this, here's the Jets. and we get a little bit of historical information. The Johnsons bought the team for 635 million. Oh, you can't see that there. 635 million or so in the year 2000, if you remember. So the team has gone up since they've owned it in these 24 years, gone up in value 10x, a 10 bagger, as they call it, or so. And we only have the one Super Bowl title, but we're up to 6.8 billion. They bought it for 635 million. Woody and Christopher. Now, the interesting thing is that they could recoup their entire purchase price by selling to a 10% stake or so. They could recoup their entire investment and still own 90% of the team. So let's see what this means for the Johnsons. I had a tweet about this. Follow me on X. I had a post, I guess you could say, earlier today. I'm putting out good content on X, if I must say so myself. Follow me at Flatbush Frankie. So here's what I put out this morning. If the private equity vote is a yes today for the NFL, which now we know it's true, it happened. This was before it happened. I put this out. Here's what it means for the Jets. 1, selling 10% of the team to private equity would infuse Woody and fam with significant liquidity. And we said in previous videos, whenever you hear liquidity, what they're talking about is straight cash, homie, just like Randy Moss said. Straight cash, homie. That's all it is. There's a fancy word for straight cash, homie. 2, that fresh liquidity can be used to pay monster signing bonuses for G5 Sauce, Brees Lightning, JJ, AVT, and the bunch. 3, having large signing bonuses reduces the cap hits on the contract so we can keep more of those young core pieces in place. Therefore, we should hope the vote is a yes, likely, and that happened, and that Woody is open to selling a 10% stake. We don't know, which is currently unknown. We don't know if Woody wants to sell a 10% stake. We have no idea. He hasn't said anything about it. Thank you for listening to my TED Talk. Well, that's the reason we should hope that this happens. And considering that if you go back to this, right here, one of these firms, Ludus, okay, is founded and led by Curtis Martin. So, unfortunately, he's part of this consortium of some firms of ill repute, shall we say. But anytime you get into the world of big finance, you're going to have some shady characters, perhaps. Blackstone, Carlyle, they don't have the greatest reputations. But he's in a consortium. All right, so it'd be better if he wasn't, but maybe he doesn't have enough liquidity. Maybe he just doesn't have the money to be all by himself, so he grouped up with these big boys. But nonetheless, the fact is that one of these groups has a tie to the Jets, and it's Curtis, my favorite, Martin. And therefore, wouldn't it be nice if this consortium bought a 10% stake in the Jets? That would include Curtis Martin leading the way, and that's a nice story. Former player, and he's obviously done well for himself in investment and so forth and so on, trying to make his way in the business world. Let's let him have a little piece of the Jets. That way, he gets in there, they own 10%, and what happens? Woody gets the liquidity, the cash he needs to sign all these people. Boom, and we can keep the cap hits low so we can sign more of them, and we're not hamstrung by these gigantic contracts that all these people are going to get. Garrett Wilson's going to be a 30-bagger. Sauce is going to be a 30-bagger, maybe 25. Brees is going to be probably 15 by that point. AVT is going to be another 20. This is a lot of money for these people. So the way to manage the cap is to pay them massive signing bonuses over the life of the contract to get spread out, and you reduce your cap hits, and that's the way to do it. But the problem with doing that, when you have a lot of these people, some of the owners don't have the liquidity to sign, because you got to write out a big fat check when they sign the contract. And some people don't have that kind of money in liquid fashion. They may have it in other things, real estate, long-term investments, things like that. Those things you can't necessarily get liquidity for immediately. So you need the cash money. And here's a way to do it. So I would say we have to hope that Woody is involved in this and he wants to do it. Now, he's going to understand all this very intuitively because remember, he makes his money not with Johnson & Johnson, but with a hedge fund. And so he understands all of this high finance stuff. And so the question really is, does he want to do this? Does he think it's good for his investment with the Jets to do this? And does he need to do it? Maybe he's got the straight cash money for all these people. Maybe he's got it. He doesn't need it. I don't know. He doesn't let me look at his balance sheets, but he should. But nonetheless, here's a way. If he doesn't, here's a way for him to do it. So there you have it. There you have it. A very, very interesting day in the NFL when we're talking about, as I try to figure out how to work this software, as we talk about the front office, the business, sporty business, I call it, sporty business. Let me know what you think about all this in the comment section down below. Please subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and I will see you.
Non-pertinent. How do you log that non-pertinent?
No drug talk?
They use codes to hide their patron phone numbers. And when someone does use a phone, they don't use names. And if someone does use a name, he's reminded not to. All of that is valuable evidence.
Of what?
Conspiracy.
Conspiracy?
We're building something here, Detective. We're building it from scratch. All the pieces matter.